You ever hear of those little tiny Arctic islands? You haven't? Well, let's talk about them. If you aren't sure where the tiny Arctic islands are, they're here. Let's zoom in and start with Mayen, which is in the red box. Mayen is a tiny island owned by Norway, and its total area is pretty tiny. It's only at around 146 square miles. It looks like this, and it has a large mountain in the center called Beerenberg, apparently. Just kidding, it's actually a volcano. The biggest and only settlement on the island is Olankenbyen, and it's located right here. It's just a research station operated by some scientists, but I suppose it still counts. It has a population of not 80, not 90, but 18 Norwegian scientists. It was originally discovered in the early 1600s by the Dutch, who kind of went into the area looking for stuff, but they ran across Jan Mayen. What a great consolation prize, Dutch. Now, on to the next, Svalbard in the red box. It's to the right of Jan Mayen and is their more successful popular version. Svalbard looks like this. It's far larger at 23,000 square miles compared to Jan Mayen. Now, 23,000 square miles may sound giant, but let's see some comparisons. For Americans, that's the size of West Virginia, and for our European friends, that's the size of Latvia. It's owned by Norway too, and has a population of 26,000 actual people and not scientists. Discovered in the early 1600s, the Dutch had sailed into the area because Svalbard was a huge spot for catching whales. Eventually that stopped after a while, and then also the Russians came in apparently. The largest settlement is Longyearbyen, which is right here. Also, I'm sure I butchered that. Weird to think that people live on such a cold, desolate archipelago, huh? Next up on the roster is Franz-Josef land in the little red box. This is Franz-Josef land. Owned by Russia, you can bet your buckets this was a joy to draw. Its total land area is around 6.2 thousand square miles and was discovered in the late 1800s. Then, for some reason, Austria-Hungary owned it, and then in 1926, the Soviet Union annexed it. I'm not sure. Nobody cares. Now, because it is just a bunch of glaciers and grass and not much else, it has no people on it except for a few military men. Franz-Josef Land is also a popular Arctic bird migratory place, apparently, and the only other real biodiversity on it that counts are the lichens, tiny grasses and flowers, and harp seals, which is always a nice touch. The one we're on now is gonna be hard to pronounce. It's called Novaya Zemlya, but I don't know, so if you speak Russian, you'd probably tell me how bad it is. Novaya Zemlya, or this, looks like a long, thin, slightly curved island split in half by a strait. Despite being desolate and in the middle of nowhere, it has a community of 3,000-ish people, 90% of whom live on the South Island. It has around 2.7 thousand people and has an area of 35,000 square miles. Novaya Zemlya is most noted for, in 1961, the largest nuke ever made was set off here by the Soviet Union. When it isn't being irradiated beyond belief or being annihilated, a common predator here is the polar bear. That's mostly about it for this place. It doesn't have much. We're back again with another Zemlya. This time, in the red box, we have Severnaya Zemlya, which apparently means Northland in Russian. This is a really remote place. Severnaya Zemlya looks like this, and has zilch people on it for reasons that I hope are obvious. Its land area is around 14,000 square miles and is very difficult to reach. It's not like the water is just crystal clear. For most of the year, it's frozen solid with pack ice, making boating here difficult. In fact, it only began to even get mapped in the 1900s by the Russians who sailed near it, And then also, apparently, much later afterwards, the Germans also did it as well during World War II. However, it isn't without life. Common living things here are a few Arctic birds, Arctic poppies, which are things apparently, lemmings, walrus, and even reindeer. And finally, on our list, as it comes to a close, we have the New Siberian Islands, which have a few different neat things about them. You'll love it. Well, you know the drill by now. This is what they look like, land area 12,000 square miles, etc., etc. However, they were discovered in the 1700s, but the controversy around them was that some sailors didn't think they existed, or that they were just phantom islands, or even a bigger landmass. They do have a population too, just 2 people. That's it, just 2. Most flora and fauna here are mostly lichens, this type of plant called a forb, and that's about it. These are pretty ruthless islands. Well, take care, friends. Wouldn't it be neat if someone who lived in one of these places paid a visit to this video? Haha, that'll never happen.